Hello, dear listener. Tonight, I want to share a story that still haunts me to this day. This tale is not for the faint of heart, and it is one I have kept close for years. It is the story of my encounter with the Bandage Man, a dark legend that haunts the coastal town of Cannon Beach, Oregon. So settle in, dim the lights, and listen closely. It all started on a chilly October evening. My friends and I had decided to take a trip to Cannon Beach for a weekend getaway. The idea was to escape the hustle and bustle of city life, relax by the ocean, and maybe share a few ghost stories by the campfire. Little did we know, we were about to become part of a legend ourselves. After a long day of exploring the beach and the charming town, we decided to drive up to a secluded spot known locally as The Turn, a winding, narrow stretch of road that locals rarely venture to after dark. It was the perfect place for an eerie story session, or so we thought. Before we delve further, let me tell you about the Bandage Man. The legend goes back to the 1950s. He is said to be the ghost of a logger who suffered a gruesome accident, leaving him severely disfigured. Wrapped in blood-soaked bandages, he prowls the coastal roads at night, seeking revenge, or perhaps simply someone to understand his pain. Stories abound of him appearing in the back seats of cars, tapping on windows, or even attacking the vehicles themselves. As we parked the car at the turn, the sun had already dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the dense forest that lined the road. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, the kind that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. We gathered around, sharing ghost stories and trying to outdo each other in the scare factor. It was my turn. I decided to tell the story of the Bandage Man, a local legend that I had heard whispers of but never took seriously. I recounted the tales of his gruesome accident, his haunting presence, and the terrifying encounters others had claimed to experience. As I spoke, I noticed a change in the atmosphere. The air grew colder, and the forest seemed to close in around us. Midway through my story, we heard Ite's soft, almost imperceptible rustling coming from the trees. We all fell silent, straining our ears to catch any sound. At first, we dismissed it as an animal or the wind, but the noise persisted, growing louder and more distinct. It was the sound of footsteps, heavy and dragging, like someone or something was struggling through the underbrush. A chill ran down my spine as I scanned the darkness, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. My friends, now visibly unnerved, whispered nervously amongst themselves. I tried to continue my story, but my voice faltered and the words caught in my throat. Suddenly, there was a loud thud against the side of the car. We all jumped, hearts pounding, and turned towards the noise. There, pressed against the window, was a face, if you could call it that. It was a grotesque visage, wrapped entirely in stained bandages, with only a pair of hollow, dark eyes peering out. The Bandage Man. Panic set in. My friend in the driver's seat fumbled with the keys, trying to start the car, but his hands were shaking too much to get a grip. The rest of us were frozen in terror, unable to tear our eyes away from the ghastly figure. The Bandage Man began to move, his movements slow and deliberate as he dragged his bandaged form along the side of the car. As the engine finally roared to life, the Bandage Man let out a low, guttural moan that seemed to vibrate through the very core of my being. He raised a hand, heavily wrapped and stained with dried blood, and slammed it against the window. The glass shook, but held firm. My friend slammed on the gas, and the car lurched forward. We sped down the winding road, the headlights cutting through the darkness, but the image of those dark, hollow eyes stayed with me. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the middle of the road, growing smaller and smaller until he vanished from sight. We didn't stop until we reached the lights of the town. Breathless and shaken, we sat in the car for a long moment, trying to process what had just happened. No one spoke, but we all knew we had encountered something beyond explanation. The legend of the Bandage Man was no mere story. It was real, and we had just survived it. For days afterward, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every rustle of leaves, Every shadow flickering at the edge of my vision brought back the memory of those dark, hollow eyes. I later learned that others had similar encounters, their stories eerily similar to ours. The Bandage Man was a ghost that haunted not just the roads, but the minds of those who crossed his path. So, dear listener, if you ever find yourself near Cannon Beach, remember the story of the Bandage Man. Be cautious when driving those secluded roads, and if you hear footsteps in the night, do not ignore them. The Bandage Man is out there, lurking, waiting for his next encounter. And if you ever see those dark, hollow eyes staring back at you, remember my story and drive as fast as you can. For the Bandage Man is more than just a legend. He is a haunting reality,